Autism is one of those terms that we hear about, but if it doesn't impact you personally, you just hear about it but don't really know what it means.
You know, you mentioned it's one of those terms you hear about. 20 years ago, you didn't hear much about it at all.
Okay.
And more we're hearing more and more about it. Is it a case where the diagnosis has changed and we're relabeling conditions that have been with us for quite some time, and now we're calling it autism? Is it a form of a developmental disability that, like I said, has been with us for quite some time, and now we've got around to labeling it autism and putting it on the autism/Asperger spectrum? What is it primarily is a communication disorder. You'll find the vast majority of people inflicted with autism have a terrible time communicating. And I think that's where the nuts and bolts of all the frustration and all the concern with this condition lies. Imagine I simply want to pick up my cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. It's out of my reach. I can't communicate to you, Joe, I'd like my cup of coffee. No matter how hard I try, I can't tell you that. And that certainly is going to develop some level of frustration.
Sure.
Which will manifest itself into behaviors. Now you are in a situation, what does Rich want? He can't tell me. So imagine a lifetime of that and the struggles that go along with it.
Now, autism is something that when a child is born, begins to be subtly noticed, maybe 6 to 8 months into a child's life.
I think that's
Want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think that's very well put too. It is subtle, and maybe it's subtle because of the euphoria of having a newborn.
Oh, sure.
Nothing else is wrong. He's a perfect baby boy, a perfect baby girl. But I think you hit it right on the head. It's subtle. You're missing things, or you start to notice things that should be going on that aren't going on, especially young parents.
But if it's your first kid,
right?
You also you have nothing to compare it to, so
you have no experience.
Is Mary or Johnny behind? And unless you have a relative or a friend that's had a baby maybe like a year and a half older,
exactly,
you would have seen it.
Exactly. So you find yourself with your peer groups, your adult peer groups, and their children, noticing that your child was doing this at 6 months, mine is not. What are the things we're talking about? Tracking, eye contact. You and I, we look at each other, we talk to each other. You do not get that, and that happens at a very young age. You know, you think of the games we play with our kids when they're little. You know, they want something. They want to. I'll recall for you an experience that we had. Our son is autistic, and when he was 2 years old, many milestones weren't being hit. Went to a pediatric neurologist. What she did, a little Tupperware container of Cheerios. Kids love Cheerios. Kids love rattles. He was not the least bit interested. Shaking it, moving it back and forth. There was no eye contact with the object. He wasn't tracking it. That was a telltale sign that we had some trouble on our hands, and that trouble was autism. Other situations you'll find lack of creeping and crawling. Okay. That gross motor skill. Basic stuff, but it's still a large muscle movement that isn't kicking in. Why? Some think it takes so much coordination to do that. Alternating arms and legs and big muscles moving, that these kids just don't have it yet. It hasn't been developed yet. And that's, again, is a telltale sign. Those are subtle things that you pointed out when we started this segment. And that's very true. They're subtle, but they're very significant.
Now, is autism something that someone is born with, or is autism something that someone can acquire some way through because of environmental reasons or in other ways?
It's been my experience on a personal and professional level,
right,
that it's a developmental disability, developmental delay. So you're born with it.
It starts at birth. There
are some schools of thought that would lend you to the idea that it's caused environmentally. There's been a big controversy about vaccinations, and the preservative. And I'm not going to try and tell you what the preservative is because a preservative
in a vaccination.
Yeah,
okay.
and it escapes me exactly what it is. So I won't go any further with that. But there has been some controversy over that, the neurotoxins, et cetera, that could have an effect. Research has has shown to the contrary. However, when you're a parent and you're dealing with this, you're grabbing on to a lot of stuff, you're looking for a lot of information, and you're really paying close attention to everything that comes across your plate.
Now, aren't vaccinations of some sort for your children mandatory in American society, or like for a child to go to school, or does a parent have the option as to whether or not they will give their child a vaccination?
It's my understanding that it's required. It's my understanding.
That's my understanding too.
Yes, absolutely. Think about when we were kids, we had to be vaccinated. We were vaccinated in school.
Right.
And there's a series of vaccinations, right, and boosters throughout, the child's school career,
right.
Elementary, secondary school. Well, it carries you through, but you get it all done in elementary school with the few vaccinations and plus boosters. So I believe it's a requirement. How people work around it is, I don't know.
Well, I would suspect if there is a question, like I refuse to get, my wife and I refuse to get flu shots every year. We've never gotten the flu.
Right.
And I would assume that if there is the possibility that someone could develop autism or other ailments because of getting a shot, that option would be given to the parent, but evidently it's not.
You're talking to somebody from a perspective, it's a very emotional topic.
Right.
So I will latch on to that. I will say, I do not want my son vaccinated. People shouldn't get vaccinated if that's not my position. I understand the position,
right,
but it's not mine. With that being said, what about everybody else? Your child doesn't get vaccinated because you don't believe in it. God forbid your child comes down with and name the disease, which in many cases is contagious. So now I've put everybody else at risk. That's a balancing act. And being understanding of the other position, meaning I understand you not wanting your child getting vaccinated, is not an answer, because I don't agree with it.
Well, as the child begins to get older, and you've noticed the differences between other children and your child, what is a parent's next step?
The first step is staying together. Parenting, staying together. Every child should have parents that stay together, especially autistic children. You asked me, I'll give you my perspective. It takes a strong father figure to get this done. It takes a committed relation. I couldn't imagine a single parent doing this.
Well, I have to share, sometimes when you and I working together, you would come into the station on a Saturday and Sunday, and you would talk about it a little bit, and I could tell you were going through a difficult time. It was just very hard for you.
Must have been adolescence.
It was the teenage years.
Absolutely. And so what are the next steps? Stay involved in the education process.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning there, when you begin to, the child gets involved in what the parent has to do. The
initial diagnosis, sure. You're curious as to why your child's not reaching milestones. The eye contact, the creeping, the crawling, etc. The language. Now you're very concerned, because every other baby that you see is parroting what their parent is saying, or so on and so forth. So you seek out a qualified pediatrician, your pediatrician, for referrals, and you seek out appointments with pediatric neurologists, experts in the field, and then you get a baseline as to where your child should be. And there's scales and graphs for everything. Right. Weight, cognitive development, we got it all. And so you can certainly, get into that aspect of it, which is strongly recommended. Then you do start looking at, diet to a certain extent.
Okay.
We did the holistic approach for quite some time. And, we were, I guess, adverse to traditional medicine, prescription medications, etc. We were adverse to it. He was young. We could manage behaviors pretty well. There came a time where the traditional prescription meds for behavior have been a godsend for his quality of life and ours. And so that, you know, I took you a long way there.
No, well, the point is, what you're saying is you did not want to use medication until you absolutely had to, which I think is a brilliant stance no matter what your ailment is.
Yeah. And, you know, you can hopefully direct behaviors, you know, and you can improve communication, find ways to communicate. Motivation is a great communicator. My son, to this day, will love a can of soda. Well, I can get a lot of words for that can of soda. I want soda, please. Dad, I want soda, please. I can get it. He's motivated to do that. So if you can do it once, you can do it over and over again. We talked the other day, you and I, about different approaches. Processing information when asking a question. That's my wife's approach.
I was going to say, you indicated when we were preparing for the show that you and your wife have different approaches, but at the same time, you seem to feel it was beneficial for your son because he had the benefit of two different approaches.
Exactly, and he's, you know, not everybody's the same, so, you know, let's try to learn different ways of relating to people. My wife will ask a question of my son and wait him out. As long as she can, you know, within reason.
What would be a normal wait out period?
30 seconds, maybe a minute.
All right.
And then we'll ask it again. The thought being, giving my son the time to process the information. A legitimate theory, a legitimate approach. Not one.
For the less patient daddy.
Thank you. Doesn't make me a bad.
Hey, I worked with you.
Doesn't make me a bad person. I tend to be a bit impatient, as opposed to my approach was a repetitive request.
Okay.
Do you want the cup? Do you want the cup? Do you want the coffee? I'll wait. It's not that repetitive, but I'll give it a second or two. But I need to get in there, and I do get a response. She does as well. He's learned how to handle his parents in that respect. But
typical kid.
Typical kid is right. And again, the response, I think, in large part depends on the motivation. What am I responding to? A soda, or do you want me to put my dish in the sink? If you want me to put my dish in the sink, I might not be so quick.
Right.
But if you're asking me if I want a soda to drink, well, I'm all yours. You'll get a response.
Now, when the child continues to grow, and you've taken us through the journey for medical treatment for the little boy or girl, and you tried to make sure that until the medication was absolutely necessary, you stayed away from that. Yeah. Now you're getting to the point where you're involved with a child heading for the preschool years and getting ready for kindergarten. With parents or a family having a child with autism, are there different places that parents should go and can go, and what sort of assistance is available?
I think by and large everyone will get that through their school district.
All right.
What services the district will offer. There's an individual education plan known as an IEP, which will be completed within the first year kindergarten of your kid being in school.
And that's the same anywhere around the country that's done for a child with autism?
That's my understanding.
Right.
And it'll state the goals, the frequency of attempting to reach these goals, what percentage of accomplishing these goals is expected, and it's all time sensitive. And that's where you would start in terms of the school program, the school outline, what it's going to take your child from kindergarten to 12th grade. And this IEP will change on an annual basis, if not more frequent.
Sure.
I urge parents to attend meetings with their child's teacher as often as you can. We were lucky. We were able to get in monthly meetings in elementary school. And you form relationships with the people that are closest to your child.
I believe you're part of the Amsterdam School District?
No, we're North Colony. I was born and raised in the great city of Amsterdam, New York.
Okay.
But we're Colony, North Colony.
Oh, okay.
And a wonderful school district. I think a school district, though, is as wonderful as the parents want it to be. They have to be involved. They have to form relationships with principals, speech therapists, physical therapists, classroom teachers, etc.